Please welcome your Australian Open men's singles champion, Jannik Sinner.
Believe it or not, nobody deserved to win the 2024 Australian Open more than Jannik Sinner. From his insanely dominant title run to the hidden secrets behind his maiden slam win, the significance of his achievements, and what this means going forward, here is how Sinner left us all speechless. So Sinner meets the world number 59 in the first round, and it's a little closer than we expect, but understandably so because unlike other top players, Sinner doesn't play any competitive matches to build up to the Australian Open. The 22-year-old is slightly off pace, but has no issues navigating his way safely into the next round. In straight sets, of course. Interestingly, Sinner's win percentage on his second serve is higher than the win percentage on his first serve. Not something we see happen every day. In the second round, Sinner faces 23-year-old Jesper de Jong, who's playing in his first main draw of a Grand Slam, after 9 attempts to get there. The Dutch qualifier tries his best to withstand the smoldering ground strokes from Sinner, but the end result is what you typically expect when a top 5 player takes on someone ranked around 150. 6-2, 6-2, 6-2. Just another day at the office. Sinner then meets the 26th seed Sebastian Baez in the third round, and it becomes pretty clear at that point that no one is going to stop him. A bagel and a breadstick in the first 2 sets, and 6-3 in the third seals the deal. Baez wins only 4 games the entire match. Sinner's aggressive attack on the Argentine's second serve restricts Baez's win percentage to a measly 28%, but Sinner would then face a real test from a certain Russian. Sinner is far from his best when he faces the 15th seeded Khachanov, who was a semi-finalist at the Australian Open the previous year. Khachanov is able to create a total of 10 breakpoint chances during the match, but can convert only 1 of them. Sinner, on the other hand, converts 5 out of his 8 breakpoints, despite being slightly off himself. Khachanov once came back from 2 sets down to beat Sinner when they met at the 2020 US Open, but that wasn't going to happen this time. Sinner wins 90% of his net points and hits 46 winners to Khachanov's 27, with the match ending in straight sets. He then faces the 5th seed, Andrei Rublev, in the quarterfinal, and we think that the scores do little justice to the quality of the play that we see. The match displays some of the best ball striking we've seen all tournament, and the lightning pace and consistency of the shots is simply mind-blowing. Rublev, who's constantly becoming a better version of himself it seems, doesn't play badly at all. Well, he really should win the second set tiebreak after being 5-1 up, but Sinner is just playing out of his skin and leaves him with no chances. At the end of the day, the Italian is simply too good for Rublev. Another straight sets victory, 6-4, 7-6, 6-3. Like he did in his previous matches, Sinner pounced on his opponent's second serves, leaving Rublev with a 37% win rate on the second, and although Rublev created 8 breakpoint opportunities, he couldn't convert any of them because Sinner went clutch in the important moments. Having gotten past Rublev, all eyes turn to his next opponent, the one and only Novak Djokovic. The predictions roll in. Djokovic in straight sets, Novak in 4, Nole in 5. A few bookmakers, though, favor Sinner in 4 or 5 sets. But hardly anyone sees Sinner winning in those straight sets. But what if I told you it almost did happen? Beating Novak Djokovic for the next gen is like a rite of passage and a legacy-defining moment for the younger players. Daniil Medvedev did it at the US Open in 2021. Carlos Alcaraz did it at Wimbledon in 2023. Here we are in 2024, and all the pressure is on Jannik Sinner to deliver. Although this is a semi-final clash and not a final like in the previous 2 scenarios, the stakes are just as high. Sinner is in the form of his life, having everyone for lunch when facing arguably the greatest of all time, world number 1 and defending champion all in one person. The tables turn because you know that Novak is like a cat with 9 lives and can beat anyone at their game. The first set begins, but before now, we've seen how effective Djokovic is at attacking players on their more powerful sides. He could go forehand to forehand with you, backhand to backhand, or subtly attack your forehands from the middle of the court with an off backhand like we see here. Well, Sinner had it all figured out and was the one doing the off backhand attack on the forehand. The first 2 sets were over in the blink of an eye, 6-1, 6-2 in favor of Sinner. Djokovic on his part was off, and off by a lot. His trusted backhand, which is usually the best in the world according to many, completely failed him on the day, and he was misfiring at an alarming rate. I mean, look at this stat. Something wasn't quite right with the Serbian, and although we don't exactly know what it was, everyone was like, come on, do something. We all know that unlike the 2013 version of Novak, who was content with grinding out neutral baseline rallies against the likes of Andy Murray, the 2023 version could be ultra aggressive if he wanted to, just like he did against Sinner at the 2023 ATP Finals. But again, this offensive style was nowhere to be found. Instead, we saw the uptick in aggression from Sinner as he was clinical on the +1 shot after the serve, while also returning better, which is why he annihilated Nole in the shorter rallies. Djokovic managed to raise his level in the third set, but the weary grunts that followed and his tendency to bail out of rallies with drop shots was clear for all to see. The Serbian couldn't serve and volley his way out of trouble like he did against Medvedev at the US Open, because Sinner's return position made it so uninviting to do so. There would be no way out for the Joker this time. He, however, narrowly won the third set after saving a match point at 5-6 in the tiebreak, but his celebration was muted and his demeanor was still mid. Djokovic then went for a bathroom break, and we dared to hope again. But when the fourth set kicked off, Sinner continued his unfinished business. The lethal blow was delivered when Nole was serving in the fourth game. 1-2 down, but 40-love up, Djokovic's drop shot couldn't kill the game. 40-15, which isn't a problem, but what followed was a backhand error, double fault, forehand error, and backhand error. The match was over at this point. Throughout the encounter, Djokovic didn't generate even a single breakpoint on Sinner's serve. Personally, I was relieved when the match was over because it had been a long time coming. After the match, Nole admitted that he was shocked with his level of play. He clearly was in a terrible place physically and health-wise. But for Sinner, he had made it to his first Grand Slam final. However, he'd have to go through a very stubborn next opponent. For the first time since 2005, the Australian Open final would not feature a member of the Big Three, but who cared? History was on the line for both players. A maiden slam for Jannik Sinner and a second slam for Daniil, who was into his 6th major final. Before the match, many fans thought that Medi would employ his usual tactic, playing patiently through the middle backhand channel and going hard into the Sinner forehand when pushed cross-court, but we were in for a shocker. Considering that he was coming off back-to-back 5-setters, it was unbelievable. As a result of his newly employed tactic, we saw Medi stand close to the baseline as opposed to standing by the back wall. It made sense in a way since Nole, Alcaraz, and even Sinner had exposed his deep return position with clinical serve and volleying. So here we see Daniil standing inside the Melbourne sign, which is usually painted 3 meters behind the baseline against Sinner. Meanwhile, he was further back in his match against Sasha. The tactics paid off. Medvedev raced to a 2-sets-to-love lead, and the match was almost a foregone conclusion. Well, until Sinner started serving better and Medi started to become a little too safe when he should have perhaps been going for broke. He reverted to his counterpunching instincts instead. But the truth is that the Russian was beginning to tire out after having played too many 5-setters in the build-up to the final. His serves began to slow down after the first 2 sets. The momentum had effectively shifted after Sinner clinched the third, and he replicated the same thing in the fourth. But we also have to give credit to Sinner for making a tactical change on the return when he was down. He started to drop back on the second serves, which allowed him to take huge cuts at the ball and push Medvedev off the baseline. Sinner threatened to break Medvedev in his first service game in the 5th set. The world number 3 was already looking heavier and hitting slower, but still swinging and giving it everything he had, but the break would finally come at 2-3 and Sinner would go on to win the match, and the tournament, and many more fans, and everything in between. But quick question, do you think the result would have been the same if Medvedev didn't tire out? Well, you might say that Medi should have managed his previous matches better, so here's another question. What could Medvedev achieve going forward by playing like he did in those first 2 sets? But let's talk about the man of the moment, Jannik Sinner. We recently made a video about him talking about his trajectory to the top and the changes he made to his game. I also made a prediction that he'll dominate everyone, and boy did he. It couldn't have been more satisfying, so let's now talk about what this means going forward. Sinner's reputation already precedes him at this point. He embodies hard work, fair play, and dedication, and it's gotten to the point where he's winning so much and he's just forgotten how to lose. No doubt, Sinner has always been an excellent ball striker. Just hearing the sound of the ball as it comes off his racket tells you everything you need to know about the power he generates. But for so long, Sinner had often fallen short in matches that went the distance. Not this time. And certainly not in the biggest match of his career. Coming from 2 sets down to win in your first Grand Slam final is something quite special, and the Italian is only going to build on this. But the question I keep asking myself is this: how does someone improve so much within 2 years? I always thought Carlos Alcaraz was the fastest learner among the next gen, but seeing how Sinner has workshopped and revamped his entire game while staying competitive is just beyond me. The guy has improved his movement, service, point construction, variety, durability, nerve management, physical endurance, but most importantly, his mentality on the big stages. It's no surprise everyone, including many tennis players, are pretty happy for him. The kid is special. Mature, composed, cool as you like, No unnecessary antics or theatrics. At this point, let's have a look at some of the numbers following Sinner's Australian Open title win. Jannik Sinner is the first player outside of the Big Three to win the Australian Open since Stan Wawrinka did it in 2014. He's also only the second Italian man to win a slam in the Open era. Sinner has now won 10 out of his 11 matches against top 5 players. He's the first and only tennis player to beat Djokovic in an Australian Open semifinal. The Italian now has 11 ATP titles. For Medvedev, credit to him for fighting till the end and forcing Sinner to serve it out. He holds the record for playing the most sets ever at a Grand Slam at 31. The Russian also spent 24 hours and 17 minutes on court, which happens to be the most amount of time spent on court at a single Grand Slam tournament in history. Medvedev also has the unenviable achievement of being the only man to lose 2 Grand Slam finals from 2 sets up, against Nadal at the 2022 AO, and now against Sinner. He now has lost 3 Australian Open finals in 4 years, and while many of us are gutted for him, the harsh truth is that this is tennis. So now we have Jannik Sinner and Carlos Alcaraz both winning Grand Slams in the last 6 months. Sinner being the only man to beat Djokovic in the Australian Open semifinals, and Alcaraz being the first man to beat Djokovic in the Wimbledon final in a decade. The way these guys hit the ball, and the belief they have in themselves, and how they had to go through the greatest of all time to achieve their wildest dreams, tells you tennis is truly in good hands. But in the meantime, we now have a lack for a better word. A big four? In the last 3 slams, only Djokovic, Alcaraz, Medvedev, and Sinner have featured in the final, and looking at their rankings, you'll see how they formed a new breakaway group from the rest of the top 10. Deservedly so. I don't see anyone else winning a slam apart from these guys, except for maybe Sasha Zverev, who I still believe has a slam in him. Or except if something really crazy happens. But for now, Jannik Sinner is the man, and y'all better let him cook. But although Sinner is on top of the world and Alcaraz is doing quite alright, Holger Rune is equally as talented, but seems to be going through a rough patch following his early round exit at the Australian Open. He's also just parted ways with his new coach, who he hired just last month. But not to worry, we already made an in-depth analysis of what's going on with him, so be sure to check it out here. And if you don't know already, we do weekly recaps every weekend, so stay on the lookout for those.